Welcome to the Rebel Love Show. We are a once-a-week broadcast from Manchester, New Hampshire. You can find all of our content on rebelloveshow.com or facebook.com/rebelloveshow. I am Rob Mathias.
And I am Joel Valenzuela.
And today we have an epic activist here today, a legend in the Free State, none other than Rich Paul.
How you doing?
How you doing, Rich?
Pretty well. Thanks for having me.
How did you enjoy the 420 rally on Sunday?
I enjoyed it by going out on the steps of the Capitol and smoking out with about 75 people.
Including state reps.
Yes, including state reps. There was one of the state reps challenged us to dress better.
I was going to ask, why were you wearing a suit? You were looking very snazzy on the steps.
Well, State Rep Michael Sylvia, who is he's at least a pork. I don't know if he's technically a Free Stater or not. But he challenged me to make the kind of beautify America by cleaning up the rally. And he said that if Ian and I would show up in suits, that he would smoke out with us.
Well, hey.
We've never had a state rep smoke at the 420 rally before, so I said, groovy, and I borrowed a tux from Johnson Rice, and I went out and smoked out with the state rep in a tux.
It's an epic picture that I saw on Facebook of him smoking. Like, you can tell he had it like perfect, like the grin on his face,
the pose.
The pose. It was a magical thing to see a state rep.
And I was talking to him later, and he's like, "How are you doing?" He's like, "I'm pretty high."
Oh yeah. Well, he doesn't normally smoke weed. He's anything but a druggie. He only did this to, basically to get us out there in suits. So, the impact on him was a lot greater than
I'm sure it hit him hard. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's an old mantra of mine that I say.
But at least me, I don't know about y'all.
That's another mantra of mine I say all the time whenever someone compliments something I'm doing around here. You guys are doing a great job or anything. I always say, hey, just trying to class up the joint, right? And so, Rich, thank you very much for doing your part to class up the joint. Sometimes it needs it,
Help beautify America. Give a hippie a bath.
Oh, exactly. A bath in the tux and a bullhorn and some inspiring words about freedom that has something to do with a little green plant that makes you feel funny things.
It's true.
Well, you do own your body. You should be able to smoke it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Although I wouldn't want to smoke my body.
Well, what if it's a smoking body? I wouldn't know. Now,
I've got the body of an 18-year-old. I keep her in the basement.
Ooh, burn. Yeah, so this whole fight for freedom on this issue, a lot of people feel about this issue. A lot of people who are drug users or have a personal connection or whatever. A lot of people feel, some people do something about it, but very few people end up actually dedicating life and putting a lot, including their whole life, on the line for this issue or for any issue. So what is it specifically? What is it about you? Like, I wanted to know the man behind, like, what is it about you, your personal makeup that just thrusts this upon you?
What drives you to do what you do?
Well, I mean, part of it I kind of do because I'm an asshole. I mean,
I'll take that, yeah.
Okay.
Political activism, in the way that I do it, which is demonstrations, is performance art done to convince. And in this case, to convince people of two things: to convince anarchists outside New Hampshire to move to New Hampshire, and to convince people inside New Hampshire to support legalization of marijuana. So, and it's like it's performance art, but you're going out and you're telling people things that they don't want to hear. They absolutely don't want to hear it because it makes them have cognitive dissonance and it hurts and they don't like it. But you have to go out on a issue that you consider important enough, and you have to break all the rules of etiquette in order to get your point across. And that's going to irritate some people, and it's going to convince some other people, and you have to do it very carefully so that you convince more people than you irritate. And I don't know if I've managed to to stick with that line.
Well, as for my personal experience, from what I've been able to see, you have inspired a lot of people. Derek J., the famous Derek J. Freeman, a victimless crimes plea, etc. He said he moved out because of you. And I, in part, moved out because of him. So in one creepy sort of way, you're sort of my granddaddy. But in other ways, that means you've inspired people who've inspired people. So even if you pissed more than you got on your side, you made the ones who count amenable to the cause. And I think, as for if you've been effective or not, I think that would be the answer right there.
So that's part of my makeup that makes me do what I do. Is when something's important enough, I stop caring what other people think of me, and I just say, no, this is vital. And people may disagree with me, but I'm genuinely sincere. But the other thing is, the importance of the issue to me is very personal. Because I had a girlfriend who died in 2002 of cervical cancer, and I believe that if she had been free of the war on drugs, that she may well have survived that incident. And it was when that happened that government became my white whale. When I said, okay, government killed my girl, and I'm going to kill government. And that was really kind of the way I look at it. And when I say that, I do not absolutely mean kill human beings who consider themselves employees of government. I mean the concept of government. Yeah. They say ideas are bulletproof, so I'm not going to use bullets. It's the idea of government that I oppose. But so the importance was very high. And the other thing is, I had a successful career as a computer programmer, and that was pretty much over. I'd become disabled to the point where I couldn't do it anymore. And I was 40 years old, unlike a lot of 20-somethings who are moving out here. And I really didn't have that much, I felt, in some ways, to lose. And
I think
so
a lot of
that
people
was
that
part
move out
of it
here.
too. To some extent, it was a kamikaze.
A lot of
mission.
people that move out here feel like they have nothing left to lose, and this is their last thing that they want to do.
Yeah,
I mean, truth be told, I haven't fully recorded yet, but I did write a song about lost liberty and stuff. There's a line in there that says, like, this is my last stand, and that is a personal reflection for me, that this is sort of my last stand in some personal way. But again, that's another topic for another day. This is all about you there, baby.
Yeah. Well, actually, that kind of reminds me, I wrote my last blog post in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, on my way up to New Hampshire, and I called it in my mind my Gettysburg Address. And one of the things that I remember saying in it, though I can't remember exactly how I put it, is, I don't know what hill I'm going to die on, but I know it's going to be in New Hampshire. And I didn't know how, at the time, I kind of thought collapse was more imminent than it seems to be right now. So this was 2009, so the bank crisis was still in bloom, and it looked like things might go really crazy really fast then. And partially my last job had been at Citibank, so I was inside the belly of the beast during writing code that traded stocks, and I saw these terrified managers running around, and the Citibank people, as the market was tanking and the scandal was coming out, just looked terrified. So I really thought that things might happen very quickly.
Well, hey, you and me both. In 2008, I interned for the White House under George W. Bush, and I was in D.C. during Obama's election and inauguration. And I was there for that whole thing. I thought that was a little bit cataclysmic to a certain extent. And it's the same thing. Hey, we're still here. The liberty movement wasn't really around the way it is today back then, because all that's happened since then hasn't destroyed the country or the world, but it's done enough that's really galvanized a lot of people. And I know a lot of people post then have signed up for the Free State Project and have moved out here because it's sort of like a stand. It's now, that's been the issue. Been like, look, all this stuff that went down, it's not going anywhere. It's going to happen again and again until there's nothing left to save in this dear country. So we better make a stand. And let's make our last stand some hill in New Hampshire. Am I right?
Yeah. And, I prefer to make not a last stand, a penultimate stand, or even a many, many stands from the last, because I'm hoping we're going to win this fight. And
I have hope that we can win it. I think we can. Yeah. We just got to get more people here. But
yeah, I don't have hope that we can win it. I have
faith.
Well, I have faith. It's a little bit more than that. Like, it's not just like I want to not don't stop believing that liberty's going to come. It's like I see it happening. I see it's going to happen.
It's inevitable.
I could be wrong, but I don't think I'm going to be wrong. I think it's going to happen. I think this is going to be the front line, and this is why I'm here. For
me, it doesn't matter. Even if it doesn't happen, for me, it's just trying to do whatever I can to make it happen. And I would feel I contemplated actually leaving the country before I moved here. And if this wasn't going on, I probably would not be in this country anymore. And to me, I would always regret not trying to do what I can to free people. Yeah, and that's what I see us all doing here.
And I was like, I had that out because I am a dual citizen. I have lived more of my life outside this country than inside. I can speak a few different languages. I can go places. And I've been places, and they ain't so peachy. I mean, America, for all its faults, still has this certain freedom culture that nowhere else really has to that same extent. Everywhere else, you have to start from scratch, kind of. Here, there's stuff to draw on. And I don't think it's everywhere, but definitely here in the Free State of New Hampshire, I think this is some place where we can actually do something. It's strongest here. I've found the locals, the apolitical locals, to be some of the more rabid liberty lovers that you'd find. It's almost odd, but hey, we got good stuff to work with here.
Yeah, I remember when I was first here and open carrying in Manchester, and I'm walking down the street, and people are coming up to me, and they're thanking me for open carrying. Just random local people are saying, "Thank you for being out here doing this," and I really thought that was cool because I came originally from Michigan, and in Michigan it's technically legal to open carry, but God help you if you do it. At least when I was there, and I think things have relaxed about open carry all over the country, and I think New Hampshire led that charge in a lot of ways because people in New Hampshire were actually out doing it, and they were doing it on YouTube, and I think they inspired a lot of people around the country to start doing open carry.
Well, I know they did, and I know Arizona is actually a place with freer gun laws than New Hampshire. For example, you don't need a permit to concealed carry or carry in your vehicle. That's since 2010. That's not been very recent, and I think a lot of the open carry culture around here influenced the very strong gun up a notch. I was in Arizona in 2009. I left, and when I came back, it's like, wow, you guys have done some good progress since I've been gone.
Yeah, I have hopes for the next Republican legislature. We may well see Vermont Carry, which is what we used to call it when Vermont was the only state in the nation that way. I have hope we might get it here.
I can see that happening here, for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's funny the way a lot of people who are absolutely not partisan and think both parties are evil still to some extent acknowledge that it's not going to happen with Democrats in power. It's kind of interesting how that works.
Well, in New Hampshire, it's just bizarre because the Republicans here are, especially the fact that there's a lot of not a lot, but 15 free staters that are in the state house now, roughly, something like that.
A couple of them are Democrats, too.
Yeah, there are Democrats as well. But the fact that the Republicans are the ones, to change it over to pot, the Republicans were the ones that pushed full legalization in the state house. And then you got the Democrats shutting that down, and the governor, who's a Democrat, saying that she's going to veto it. I mean, that seems like upside down from the rest of the country. You think Republican, conservative, and, pro-drug war, and in New Hampshire it's the complete opposite.
Yeah, it's funny how many of the things that I believed about the Democratic Party when I was a member, and I mean an enthusiastic member of the Democratic Party and supporting Dukakis and Clinton, but so many of the things that I believed about my own party were false. I thought we were the party of peace. But yet it turns out that if you actually look at the history, in most cases, Democrats have gotten us into wars and Republicans have gotten us out or left us in existing wars.
Not that I'm trying to defend Republicans.
No.
I'm just trying to paint the picture.
No.
Yeah.
It's just an interesting thing that I don't generally think of. And, obviously there's a lot of things I disagree with Republicans, Democrats, and any other brand of statists about.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that that's just something that most Democrats believe their party stands for, that it doesn't. And marijuana legalization is another one of those things. I mean, most of the rank and file Democrats I know say they want more personal liberty in that kind of area, sex and drugs and that kind of thing. But yet somehow their party isn't doing anything.
I mean, a lot of people don't realize that Obama has raided more marijuana dispensaries than Bush did.
True.
With his DEA, and it's just insane that the Democrats are not pro-drug. They're not at all. Not the Republicans really are. I mean, at least in this state, enough Republicans are. I wouldn't say majority, but enough are. But it's just a fascinating thing that so many Democrats are anti-drug. They're pro-drug war, which is kind of blows my mind because they're supposed to be the socially liberals.
Well, yeah, that's what.
Well, Democrats should reject the drug war because they support freedom in your personal life, and Republicans should reject the drug war on the federal level just because of the 10th Amendment. I mean, there's no authority for the federal government to do anything of the kind. Arguably, the states could do it, and it would be constitutional, but for the federal government to do it's crazy.
Well, I found one thing with the parties is, as far as the issues, a lot of the voters in each of the parties don't tend to fall along issues or things they care about or size and scope of government. They tend to be on cultural lines. And so the conservative types, the largely Anglo, family-centered, hardworking, pro-military, pro-gun, those kinds of people tend to align with the Republican Party. And then ethnic minorities, union workers, this other hodgepodge of other people, or hippie types tend to align with the Democratic Party, even though the Democratic Party doesn't support the issues that they really care about. When it push comes to shove, they vote because, again, Obama looks like one of us. He talks like one of us. He uses the graphic design things and the posters like we do. He's cool. He says he can still hang. What president says hang? It's like that kind of thing. That's why they care about him.
He's got swagger.
Yeah, and that's
just like Bill Clinton playing the sax years
exactly.
Years ago.
And that's the whole thing. It's cultural, and they've duped people into falling. Oh no, it's the tribalism. You guys are with us because you're like us. You guys are with them because they're like. And in the meantime, both parties are colluding to do the exact same destructive things.
Yeah, and it's a very human tendency to look not only at what is done but at who is doing it. And, I remember more than once standing up to defend a friend and then realizing that my friend was in the wrong. And that principle required that I said, look, you're my friend, but you're doing the right thing right here. And you're doing the wrong thing right here. And you're the one who needs to back up. And that's a difficult thing to do because your tendency is just to trust your friends and to distrust other people and to trust your friends' judgment, to think they're probably going to be in the right in conflict.
Yeah, exactly. And that's been one of the issues with anarchists and libertarians and people like that, is there's a lot of there's a lot of common ground, right? A lot of people are on the same side with us on a lot of issues. It's just that there's that culture of like an anarchist. Like, anarchist is a bad word. I'm not one of those guys. I don't throw Molotov cocktails.
I try not to use it in when I'm talking to a statist.
Exactly.
If I'm talking to like other anarchists or libertarians or Ron Paul supporters, I'll say it without batting an eye. But when I'm talking to a statist, when I'm trying to convince them like peace is the way, like stop using violence against people, self ownership, all that jazz, I don't use anarchy because it's such a tarnished word. From their perspective,
and that's
it's a matter of audience.
Yeah.
When I was doing business with juggalos, for example, I sold weed in New Hampshire for a while, and I also sold.
It's a great agorist business,
and I also sold nuts and bolts at one time. And when I say I sold something, you won't know whether it's nuts and bolts or weed. But when I did business with juggalos, I said anarchist because for them being kind of countercultural and considering themselves rebels, it was appropriate for them. There's an age group where the word anarchy resonates, and there are age groups where it resonates very badly.
Did you wake up any juggalos?
As a matter of fact, yeah. A guy named Grant. Can I use proper names?
Yeah.
Guy
sure.
named Graham Colson. He's out on Facebook as an anarchist, so I don't mind.
Yeah, I know that guy.
He
He's
started out as a juggalo and very young, about 18 years old when I met him, and he's now 20 and an anarchist and very active. And at the same time still has some rough corners, rough edges, like I do. He moves between interacting with juggalos and interacting with free staters, and there are some things that are appropriate with one group and some things that are appropriate with another group. And one of the things you have to learn in agorism is when you're doing business with earth people, talk like earth people, be one of them, but still
when speaking with humans,
get your ideas in subtly.
Yeah.
And don't try and make them anarchists in a day. Try and make them think about one issue in a day.
Oh, you can't make anyone turn in a day. I mean, it's a journey for every single person. The only thing that I can hope for whenever I'm talking to someone that's not there yet is the idea that hopefully I'm planting the seed of doubt in their mind. And that's the only thing I can hope for whenever I'm talking to anyone.
Well, that's my approach too. I run a site called the Desert Lakes, and it writes on all. I write and do videos, etc., on all manner of pro-liberty topics, but I always write it from a educated layperson, human perspective. And so my last article, I got equal traction in the conservative, the libertarian, and even the progressive and Occupy groups. I managed to do one article that resonated with all three.
See,
and
that's
nice. What I tried. That's what I try so hard to do, and that's also that's kind of our whole mission. We as individuals aren't trying to preach to the choir. We as a show here absolutely are trying to preach to the choir.
This is definitely to the choir.
But we're preaching to them. Come here and sing with us.
Exactly. Hey, it sounds better with
You're
a little
not
harmony.
living in New Hampshire. Why the hell are you not living here yet if you're watching this show? I mean, come on now.
Come join the barbershop quartet. Always one person short of in key.
Yeah. But the other thing is, I do a lot of a technique that Michael Cloud of the Libertarian Party and the Harry Brown campaign called political cross-dressing. And so basically, I try to come from a perspective that is true, but as close to the person that I'm talking to as possible. So if I'm talking to a neocon, I'm going to sound like a Ron Paul Republican. If I'm talking to a Ron Paul Republican, I'm going to sound like a party libertarian. If I'm talking to a party libertarian, I'm going to sound like an anarchist. And if I'm talking to an anarchist, I probably need to go find somebody else to convert, because we spend too much time telling anarchists how great anarchy is, and they know.
Yeah, they do know.
How wondrous anarchy is and how it can solve all of life's problems.
And in some ways, I do take a nuanced view. I mean, I am an anarchist in that I believe that the best possible human society would have absolutely no government. At the same time, recognizing the demographic reality that we're less than 1% of the population, even in New Hampshire, there's going to be government until we've educated an awful lot of people. And if nothing else, I think it's wise to stay active enough in that government to keep it off your back.
Well, it's a fascinating thing here because within the liberty community in New Hampshire, you got the civil disobedience crowd, you get the agorist crowd, and then you got the minarchists, almost anarchists in politics. Like you have anarchist state reps, and it's weird that like in the liberty community, in the circles and whatnot, they all intermingle. You know what I'm saying? It's not like separate communities. It's all the same. They're all going to the same events. They all know each other, but it's like, no one's kind of like questioning what tactic you use because, all tactics are good. Like, let's see what works.
Yeah, I'm down with all of it. I mean, I don't seem to do anything in New Hampshire without getting arrested. But my first
that
arrest...
probably means you're doing something right.
Yeah, well, it could be. But my first arrests in New Hampshire were doing civil disobedience. My second arrest in New Hampshire, I was doing agorism, and it only turned into civil disobedience when I refused to let them to blackmail me into infiltrating my own political movement. And then... But I've also gone and talked to the legislature, and I've also worked for Ron Paul. My first arrest for civil disobedience, I was wearing a Ron Paul T-shirt, and there was a reason for that because Ron Paul was big right that minute, and I thought maybe seeing somebody getting arrested in a Ron Paul T-shirt might get some Ron Paul people thinking about civ dis and coming to New Hampshire. So I've worked all three corners of that triangle, and I love them all.
Well, hey, why do you think we have that specific love logo on the Rebel Love show? Doesn't that kind of look like the Ron Paul Revolution thing? Maybe a coincidence.
Okay, you might want to edit this out, but I don't know what your logo looks like. I really don't pay any attention to Liberty Movement because Liberty Movement media just because I'm already an anarchist and I'm already here, and they have nothing left to convince me of.
Since I got here, I have barely listened to any media outside of even period. But before I got here, because I felt like I was alone, you know, and all I did was listen to LRN, Free Talk Live, and M. Kokesh or Freedom Feens, whatever it was. Like I listened to like every possible Liberty podcast, YouTube show, you name it. I was listening and watching because I wasn't here. I was like by myself. But like when you're here in this community, like do I listen to a podcast, or do I just go talk? Do I go to like the Quill or wherever and hang out with a bunch of cool people and talk about whatever we want to talk about? Like.
Yeah, the sad thing is watching Facebook from New Hampshire, and I'm connected to anarchists and liberty activists and minarchists also. I don't hate minarchists. Yeah. Some people hate minarchists. I love minarchists a lot more than I love what I call statists, which is people who want to grow government. But I completely forgot where I was going with that.
Well, where I was going with that, if I forgot what the logo looked like, I might be in some deep shit. But you don't run the show. You don't need to care. You're just here to talk. We're not here for you to pimp out the show. You're just here to talk. And so far, I don't know about you, but he's been talking. Okay.
Well, groovy. And I don't know. I'm having a good time.
Hey, and no liquor involved. Hey, how'd that happen?
Yeah.
So what's going to be the future plans for you? What are you going to be up to now for the foreseeable future?
Well, it's a good... there's a number of possibilities in the future. Right now, just coming out of jail, I'm still living pretty much hand to mouth. I lost a lot when I went to jail, including my business and somebody who was very special to me. And so I'm rebuilding. Right now I'm working in Keene, and I'm doing Robin Hooding, which is basically going around and when you find expired parking meters, you beat the meter maid there and you put some money in it so they don't get a ticket. And it doesn't make me a lot of money, but there's a stipend involved, and I managed to be self-supporting that way.
Now, how did you manage to get that gig with your relatively normal hair. I thought you needed some sort of outlandish hair either on your head or on your beard in order to land that gig.
You see, I don't know. In some quarters, the shaved head with a beard is considered somewhat outlandish. So, it might have been good enough, or they may have said that his personality is outlandish enough that it outweighs the need for hair to prove it.
Exactly. Well, how has it been? I know you did your time, you took your bullets for the movement, you stood strong, and then now you're out into the welcoming, loving arms of the entire liberty movement around here, right?
Well, I mean, there have been exceptions to that. I mean, if you don't have any haters, you're doing it wrong because nobody's noticed you. And, I've got my haters like anybody else, but I've gotten a lot of support since I've gotten out, and I'm happy. I'm pretty happy where I am now. I've got a pretty good life. I can support myself doing something that irritates the government, and that makes me very happy.
Well, that sounds good. Now, the whole, I know you've borne quite a cost for standing up for what is right. Is this what you bargained for? Is this something that was in your original estimation of what you'd have to pay for liberty? And if not, would you have reconsidered it if you'd known this in advance?
If it comes down to a war between the people and the government, I am willing to give my life if I think that it will earn something. I'm not going to go out and die in a hail of bullets for nothing, but at the same time, I will fight. And this is kind of my back against the wall. I don't have anywhere to go from here. I came to New Hampshire because I gave up on the rest of the world. And so, yeah, I mean, if necessary, I will pay what it takes. Things have been there are some things that I didn't expect. I kind of thought that the at least the haters within the movement would take some time off when I got out of jail and give me time to regroup, and instead they were right on me, and that was kind of painful and difficult. But if you become a public person, you have to expect a certain amount of attack, especially if you're opposing the government.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. And I think some people thought it'd be like a party. Hey, we all get to go out and have a good time standing up to the government. I'm sure a lot of people came to Keene thinking that thing, and they did some great work. And a lot of people have left Keene too.
Yeah, a lot of people left Keene, and there was actually a large migration from Keene to Manchester.
That's the first thing I noticed when I landed here was the amount of Keeniacs in Manchester. I was actually kind of shocked by the amount of people from Keene in Manchester when I got here.
And I think there were a number of reasons for that. I think part of it was my arrest on the drug charges. I think that scared a lot of people. I know that it scared people, and this is kind of an example of one of the negative things that I didn't expect. On the night that I was arrested, I was living at the KAC, and I went home and told them I was arrested, and they asked me to wear a wire, and I told them I wasn't going to do it, and I got to go talk to a lawyer tomorrow. And what the person who was running the CAC at the time, whom I will not name, said to me was, well, you can't sleep here tonight. And so my girl and I literally had to go out and sleep. We set out to sleep in the car. And, about a little while after we left, I got a call from Ian Freeman saying, I just heard about this, and please come stay at my place. So it's not like the whole liberty movement turned its back on me, but that was something that I really didn't expect, and something that Well, I've since talked to a lot of people at the CAC, and I don't think that will ever happen to another activist because, they realized in the cold light of reason that it was the wrong thing to do. But people were really scared because this was serious stuff. I mean, when the FBI talked to me, what they told me is you could do 81 years for what you're doing, and
That's a long time.
yeah, and the way they calculated that number was technically true, but somewhat unrealistic. I would have had to max out on everything. Of course, that's not going to happen. But I was absolutely terrified, and I'm sure everybody around me was scared to death that we were about to get Waco'd.
Yeah.
Because and I thought about that. I mean, when you're in the clutches of the FBI and they're asking you to wear a wire, it's like, yeah, and what's going to be in the briefcase? A bomb? Because they use people as patsies. They do awful things. So anyway, some people got scared by that, and the good news is it turned out to be much less than anybody expected. I thought I'd do at least 5 years, when this thing came up, and I was thinking, probably closer to 10. But I didn't. I knew the 81 was wrong, but still. So that was something that got people out of Keene. But even then, they didn't really want to leave the state. They just wanted to get away from that particular issue. And then the other thing is civil disobedience is becoming less popular as a tactic because a lot of people are feeding back and saying what we're doing is irritating them more than it's convincing, and you have to balance the irritation with the convincing when you do civil disobedience.
I have a difference opinion on that because in New Hampshire, especially here, when you do any kind of activism, doesn't matter what you're doing. Normally, if you're doing activism somewhere else in the country, you have one purpose: to change the status quo of whatever you're being active for. But when you're doing it here, there's two reasons why you're doing it. A, because you want to change the status quo, but B, you're going to try and inspire people to come here.
Yeah, and I noticed that I've since done video conferences with student groups around the country. For example, I was doing the Students for Liberty at Arizona State University, and I was doing my little pitch, my 20-minute pitch or 10-minute on why they should move to the Free State. And one of the questions, I got a few different questions, and two of them were related to Keene. I forget what one of them was, but the other one was about Robin Hooding, was about, I hear there are these people that go around filling up meters and saving people from parking tickets. Is this true? Is this true? And it's like, yes, it is true. And they're like, whoa. And so there are the irritated people, right? There are the irritated locals. There are people turned off by it. There's also a lot of people that are inspired by just fighting government at every little root level. Most people wouldn't. Let me just be honest. The last thing in my mind when it comes to smashing the state, in the proverbial sense, is parking meters. That's the last thing that I would. The most least egregious of the abuses. But when you really get down to it, it's a. I don't know. Why don't you talk about it more? You like to do it more than I do.
Well, yeah. I mean, I do it because I need to eat. And I do think it's good outreach activism in that a lot of times it's the first mention that locals hear of us that they consider positive. And there have been pluses and minuses from the PR. That used to be that people were out Robin Hooding would stay right by the meter maids, and there was a lot of conversation between the meter maids and the Robin Hooders that it may have made for interesting video, but it irritated a lot of the locals. So now we go around and we don't make much effort to follow the parking attendants. We're just filling all the meters that need to be filled because that's better PR, and we're not here doing activism to make people hate us. And even if we're doing something that's within our rights, if it's not having the intended effect, we need to stop. And I always try to remind people that activism out in the street is performance art. And the question is, are you getting across to your audience? Is your audience coming away with the thoughts and feelings that you wanted to give them? And if they're not, you got to change what you're doing.
Well, it depends on your audience. Like exactly. I said, like we talked about last night. I'm here because of podcasts and YouTube. You know, like seeing activism, hearing people talk about activism, inspired me to come here. All right. So when I say like when any kind of activism that takes place here, there really is two reasons for it.
Yes.
It's not just trying to reach the people that you're actually in front of, but if you're recording that or talking about it like on a podcast like this or whatnot, other people out there on the internet somewhere that on this planet are going to see that, be inspired, and they're going to come here.
And I'll tell you, if you're thinking of moving here and you don't know if you want to do it and you want to see part of what New Hampshire is like, I really recommend looking up the video footage. There's a lot of it from Obscured Truth Network of the original 420 rally. Because I'll tell you, there were some feelings I had when I was doing that I never had before in my life. I mean, I'm getting arrested at one point, and 75% of the people at the 420 rallies were locals. And these locals, a lot of them high school kids, as I'm getting arrested, are chanting, "Freedom, freedom, freedom." And it was just an amazing feeling to have that going on, and to hear that from like normal people who didn't come here as members of the Free State Project.
Yeah, and kids too. It's not people who don't have a political agenda yet. It's like a visceral thing now. It's these kids just want people just before they've gotten this whole party system or politics, anything in their head. They're just, we want to be free. Look at this guy is being hauled away for smoking a blunt. Freedom. It's a really powerful thing at that level.
Yeah.
Well, the state uses propaganda against kids. Why can't we use propaganda against the state in regards to younger people?
Yeah, and
bring our message.
It's unpopular to call your own propaganda, but I
but
call
it is
my
propaganda.
propaganda because to me, I take the emotional out of propaganda and just say it's political speech intended to convince.
Well,
and that's exactly
all political
what I do.
speech is propaganda.
Yes.
You're using it as a tool to convince someone. That doesn't matter who what you're using it for.
Yeah.
But the state uses it to the point toward indoctrination. But I have no qualms with anyone using free speech to try and reach younger people.
Yeah, and no, I like that. I'm a really big fan of the concept of propaganda and the term because it's been used as a dirty word, but people use it all the time, and all it is
Bring
a
it back.
message distilled to its core roots with an emotional tie to it. And there's a lot of that we need to be doing. In fact, are you familiar with Bureaucrash?
Yes, I actually started the "If Thy Left Sleeve Offend Thee" campaign, where when Bureaucrash changed hands into neocon hands, I was encouraging everybody to cut the left sleeve off their Bureaucrash shirts.
Yeah, well, Bureaucrash is actually my Free State inspiration. Back in 2007, 2008, I was in D.C. Trying to be a Beltway-tarian, change the system from within, the whole thing. I met Pete Eyre there when he was running Bureaucrash.
And then it was great.
Oh, yeah, then it was great. And I still have that Mickey Mouse Che Guevara sweatshirt he gave me. He was like, oh, yeah, I heard about you because an old flame of mine was doing graphic design for them at the time. And he's like, oh, she wanted you to have this. Okay, so that was my connection. And then I followed it, and I cried bitter tears when Bureaucrash came crashing to the ground slowly but surely. And I knew that kind of thing, that kind of on-the-ground activism was what was going to win this fight for liberty. And I just sought it out, and this is where I found it, so here I am.
Yeah.
Speaking of inspiration, I have a question for you.
Sure.
Was there any person that inspired you to move here?
I joined the Free State Project in 2002, and so we didn't even know it was going to be New Hampshire then, so there was no activism footage going on at that time, but I didn't move until February of 2009, and in between, the things that created the urgency for me to move now, and I don't want to miss this, I want to be here now, was seeing, I remember a video that literally made tears roll down my face, was watching the Real ID protests of, I think, 2006, and seeing people carrying firearms on the state on the steps of the state legislature, and they were out there in great numbers, and they were pissed. And I said, oh my God, I had never seen people open carry firearms before. And to see them doing it there and in the context of a protest, I thought, oh my God, I've got to be there. Then there were other people. The Ridley Report was a big piece of liberty movement, liberty media back in the day, and I watched.
It still is.
Yeah, well, it still is, but it's still big, but the rest of the field has grown up around it, so there's a lot more field up there where he probably had at one point 25% of the market, and now nobody has 25% of the market.
Yeah, that's very true.
Well, as for, I like the way you phrased it, that the I gotta move now moment. My I gotta move now moment was Representative Cynthia Chase calling us a threat and saying that she needed to do everything she could to stop, to restrict our freedom so that we wouldn't move out anymore. And at that point, I knew two things. One, holy crap, I want to piss this woman off. I'll do whatever I can to piss her off. And two, now there must be something incredible going on here for such a small number of people to cause such an alarm with exactly the kinds of people who stand for everything I oppose. And so that was that. I need to go now. I need to be there now as soon as I can because I'm going to miss it. I'm going to miss the train. That was sort of my moment.
Yeah, I didn't want to miss anything going on here. There wasn't just one thing. It was just a lot, seeing all the different liberty media coming out of New Hampshire, seeing all the different activism, hearing about just the state legislature stuff going on, to the civil disobedience, the agorism, seeing so many people move here, seeing the numbers jump by hundreds and hundreds. I couldn't wait. I had signed in February of the previous year, and I told myself I could hear in 1 year, and I made it by like a week, but I made it. And I couldn't wait to get here. I remember planning like 3 months before to move, like saving every dime I had, not doing anything, just so I can get a plane ticket to get here.
Yeah, I remember that whole thing because when I moved up in September, I went on and stayed with you in Chicago, and then when I got here, every little step of the voyage, everything I was doing here, I was just throwing stuff back and making them jelly.
I was living vicariously through not just your post, but so many other people's posts. Like, a lot of people don't understand. Like, I post a lot of stuff on Facebook.
Yeah, here we go. The friends strangers on Facebook pitch. I love it.
Okay, look, 90% of what I post is not for people that live here, and if they are, reading it and stuff like that, great. But it's not for them. There's so many people that want to know what life is like here, and I try to just post what I'm doing, like going to like a Bitcoin meetup, or meeting up with a bunch of freestaters at like Taproom Tuesday or whatnot, just stuff like that. Just making a post saying, hey, I'm doing this with these people, or taking a photo of like hey, there's a meetup, or this civil, like we just taking a couple photos Monday morning, going to hand out jury nullification flyers, like, hey, we're doing something, just something, like showing pictures and doing videos and stuff like that. But with Facebook, it's literally just like I can make a post. I know people are like reading my posts about what I'm doing and where I'm going and whatnot, but it may seem mundane to the people that live here, because a lot of my posts probably do seem mundane, like, oh, I bought a beer with Bitcoin or something like that. So here it's like that's a normal occurrence. Bitcoin, like,
I do that every day.
we order like hell every other week. I'm ordering takeout with Bitcoin. From an agorist food company.
It's awesome.
It doesn't.
Wow.
That it's to us, it just seems like a normal thing. But to people that don't live here, that's like, what you ordered? Yeah. Ordered from an agorist food delivery service and paid in Bitcoin. Like, that doesn't exist anywhere. But just like small stuff like that will also help inspire, because it really talks about more about the culture of what it's like living in the community, not just you can watch every speech and YouTube video you can, but it doesn't really give an idea of what the culture's like here.
Yeah, and
there are places in New Hampshire where no videos are taken because that's the way it's designed. I mean, if I was to visit New Hampshire now, the biggest thing that would draw me here is the existence of the quill.
Yes.
The fact that I can go, and I'm not going to specify too much about... Oh, shit. We're not broadcasting, so I'm going to go ahead and say what I was going to say, and if you want me to say it again, I will. But
go ahead. You can name drop the quill or whatnot. I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not going to hide the fact that it exists.
Being able to go in and have an indoor place where I can smoke a cigarette and socialize with people at the same time, sitting on a couch in the winter.
We're calling them cigarettes now.
Well, yeah, I can smoke one of those too if I want to while I'm socializing, and that's a wonderful thing. So that to me is one of the biggest things, and it was actually my dream at one time to, and it still kind of is, to operate some sort of agorist hospitality joint. So joint being probably the operative word in mind.
Yeah, good one.
But no, I agree with the fact that there's places that we can go to socialize with the community, like whether it's the Quill, Area 23, the CAC, or what have you. Like, there's places that people can go to socialize.
Well, that was although Cynthia Chase was my trigger my trigger of if was actually Vanessa Vine's Instagram. Posting pictures of what the life's like here in New Hampshire, where I could envision myself living, not just showing up here. That was what convinced me that this is the place I want to call home. And then when I just came here in September, Area 23 didn't exist. It wasn't even the thing. And now it's one of the biggest draws. It's an incredible place. A lot of things are happening. And showing what's happening there, like, for example, last week there was a Shire co-op. And it's a big cooperative marketplace with people from all around the state, completely cutting the state out of the government, out of the transaction. There's people, you can buy grass-fed beef, homemade mead, all kinds of stuff with Bitcoin. How just amazing is that? And it's all in Area 23 is where it happens. And this didn't exist when I moved out here 6 short months ago. And I, for one, am dedicated to showing the world what's going on here in any way that the people will let me, just because this is something incredible that people will want to be a part of. And even if they don't want to come here, they know what to do in their own communities now.
The fact that there's infrastructure alone is just impressive, because you go anywhere where there's even kind of activists, like there's strong activist communities like in Texas and Philly and stuff like that, but they don't have infrastructure like there is here. And then I don't know about there, but the energy here going to these places and meeting so many people, it's inspiring that we actually have infrastructure for I don't want to say like our community, because like I would love to bring in as many natives as possible,
humans,
but
they become members of our community.
Yeah, exactly. There's many natives that are part of this community. They're not free staters or porks, but they're part of this community, and I'm more than welcome to have as many natives as possible join our cause.
I'm convinced in order to really get what we want, we're going to have to not only move 20,000 free staters here, but each of those free staters is going to need to make porks out of 10 locals. That would give us 220,000, minus those that leave and whatever. And that would be a big enough block to make a huge difference, I think.
Well, yeah, we're all in the business here of making pork sausage.
I will say there does need to be more outreach to natives. I mean, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because the community here is so great. Like, you don't want to venture out much, because it's like I enjoy being within the community, but at the same time, a lot of us do need to make more of a concentrated effort to reach out to the people that do live here.
And actually, we missed, when we talked about civil disobedience, the third constituency in civil disobedience for porks, which are the activists themselves. When I'm out, as I did in 2008 and 2012, working for Ron Paul, I'm working for Ron Paul, but I'm also trying to take his activists and turn them into anarchists or party libertarians or something closer to me. So long as they move closer to me, I don't care how far they move in their first step.
Yeah.
So you're always working all three crowds: anarchists outside New Hampshire, locals in the audience, and your fellow activists. And all of it is activism. So there's infinite trade-offs you can do with that. It's loads of fun.
Yeah, that's the beauty of activism is there's a lot of everything we do can be activism, from having a certain vanity plate, from the show, from buying a beer in Bitcoin and Instagramming it and then getting retweeted a few different times and having people message me on Twitter being like, whoa, where's that at? And then just mention the pub, and then they look it up and they're like, wow, that is so cool. I did not know that. When can I move? I've had a few different people that want to move because they saw that stupid picture of my Angry Orchard pint of cider that I paid with Bitcoin in a proper pub. It's like that. That's such a small thing, but just, hey, I just was having my Sunday drink and I just decided to take a picture, and all of a sudden someone wants to move out. I mean, even someone I know of. There might be a few different more. And so that's the beauty of activism, is it just living free.
You never know who you're going to inspire either.
Yeah.
I mean, you do something now, you never know what you say or do that will affect someone else down the road.
Oh, and open carry is another form of day-to-day activism. Until I became a felon, I open carried every single day. I was known for it, and it was partially because I was in a dangerous business, but it was also because I wanted as many New Hampshireites as possible to remember a positive experience with a guy who had a gun in their hip. On their hip, because usually you see a gun on somebody's hip, you think he's a cop. No wonder you're scared.
Exactly, which is one thing.
Well, that's the state's propaganda.
Well, it is, but that's what most people think. Actually, I remember one time walking down the street in Manchester carrying a firearm, and there were a couple of guys sitting on the porch smoking cigarettes, and one of them yelled out, and this was in an area where cops were not considered welcome, and one of the guys yelled out to me, "How you doing, officer?" And and I had just happened to be smoking a joint at the moment.
Which is awesome right there.
So
that must be the most pimptastic, awesome cop ever.
Yeah.
Or maybe you weren't a cop. That's kind of the other thing.
I think they weren't aware that what I was smoking was a joint. So what I did is, they looked cool enough that they probably smoked weed. And so I approached them and I said, well, actually, I'm not a cop. I'm an anarchist. I believe in defending myself. And y'all want to smoke this joint with me? And,
that is beautiful activism right there. Wow.
So it was a lot of fun, and also rarely would I actually mix drugs and gun activism, but that just happened to be that moment. But a lot of it is just making sure that you always have, if you're open carrying, you always have a smile on your face, and when people ask you questions, you always give them a friendly answer. You never get defensive. And, I had some good conversations. I walked into a laundromat, and the lady said to me, "Are you a bounty hunter?" And I said, "No, I'm a computer programmer."
Yeah, no blonde mullet there.
Yeah. And she said, well, and you have to carry a gun? And I said, well, I don't have to, but it doesn't hurt. But and after I said that, she laughed, and she was disarmed by that. She was no longer, because I think
no
she
pun
was a
intended,
nervous.
Of course.
Yeah, I think she was a little nervous at first about my having the gun and not being a bounty hunter, which I don't know why that would make her more comfortable, but.
Well, being polite to anyone when you're doing any kind of, like, if you're talking to any natives or whatnot, you have to be polite as you can, because you never know who you're going to talk to. You can leave a horrible taste in their mouth, like, oh, this person's a free stater, and look how rude they are. Like, all of them must be like that. You can convince someone so much nicer with a smile and being polite than you can being rude to them.
Yeah, and a lot of times when people raise that issue, well, it turns into a mutual back-patting society where we all agree that we're within our rights, and. Well, so what? If you're out there trying to convince people and you're not convincing people, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
You can be within your rights and still be doing the wrong activism.
All right, we're going to be cutting this short because we're running up to our limit, but I have one last question for you. We're new bloods here, and there's going to be a lot more people moving soon. You're a veteran here. What advice do you have to new movers?
Hurry up.
Amen.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing is a lot of us happen to be unique places in our lives where we could move out at a moment's notice, or we had nothing to lose. But like, if I knew, I would have done it earlier. And I mean, that's what we do. We show the example. We show the way. We're the John the Baptist of the. I mean, I guess you are at least, right, Rich?
Well, I've had my baptism by a couple of things.
Head on a plate and all that.
Huh?
Head on a plate and all that.
Well, God, I hope they haven't beheaded me yet.
Yeah, well, hey, you still look like you're here today with us right now, and I really want to thank you so much for taking some time to just have a nice little chit chat with us, and hopefully the rest of the Liberty community that's watching to just talk about. You've had an incredible experience while you're here, and we just want to thank you so much for.
You've been an inspiration to a lot of people.
Yeah, for sharing your inspiration with us.
Well, thanks for being here, because the other reason for moving lots of people to New Hampshire is I'm running out of people I haven't pissed off yet.
Hey, we're still golden. We're still cool.
Groovy.
All right. Thank you very much.
Well, we got to plug, man. What are you doing?
Yeah, I said
You're
thank you.
ruining the format
I said
here.
thank you very much.
Now, what are you...
Okay, now you're starting to sound like Bob and Doug McKenzie.
You are ruining the format of this show. What are you doing to me?
What format?
You can catch us
All right.
at rebelloveshow.com, facebook.com/rebelloveshow. We are now on Stitcher. We're waiting for an iTunes account because some reason they haven't approved our account yet. But we'll be on there soon, and you can always get us at youtube.com/rebelloveshow. We'll be back again a week from today. Catch us every Wednesday. We're always a live broadcast. I am Rob. This is Joelle. Rich is here with us. It's been a pleasure, and we're out. Peace.
Great.